the metaverse, NFTs, crypto, blockchain, all these words that we see flying around. Here's an expert who'll break it down for you in a very simple manner and who'll give you so much fodder for your thought, so many things to think about that you will return to this episode. This is part two of a fantastic long conversation that we had. This one will highlight all the blockchain, metaverse opportunities for you guys going forward in your own careers. I look at the Ranveer Show community as one of the smartest communities on social media. And this episode is a gift to you guys. This was one of the heaviest episodes to record, one of the heaviest episodes to even absorb for me. I had to return to it myself to absorb all of it. And here it is for you. So remember, for more episodes like this, follow up with the new flavor of the Ranveer Show. Follow us on Spotify. We're a Spotify exclusive now. Every episode is available on Spotify 48 hours before it's available anywhere else in the world. This community is only growing. This community is only getting better. And in the long-term story of this community, we're going to have a lot of blockchain professionals, a lot of blockchain entrepreneurs. This is going to be a life-changing podcast for many of us. I promise you that. Anshul Rustagi of Totality Corp. Anshul Rustagi, the creator of the Zionverse, returns on the Ranveer Show. What's Totality Corp? What's the Zionverse? That and more on this episode. Enjoy. Anshul Rustagi, welcome to part two of this conversation. Got to talk about NFTs, got to talk about crypto, got to talk about Web3, got to talk about making money.
Yep.
Just to set some context for people who've never heard of Web3, Web 1 was where you basically used blogs. So it was the form of the internet where you would go on a yahoo.com, you would go on a cartoonnetwork.com, you'd go on a wwe.com.
Correct.
And just read things. Probably not be able to interact. Web 2 is Facebook and Google, where you're interacting with the internet. You're uploading your own photos, you're uploading your own status. It had great UI, got lots of users, but the downside was that it made a few organizations very, very powerful.
Correct.
Because who's the most powerful person nowadays? It's not the president of the United States. It's the person who can ban the president of the United States from
their platform.
Yep. It is the people at Twitter.
Correct.
It is the people at Google. It's the people at Facebook. It's the people at Amazon. It's the people in all the massive companies you hear about. The human race has realized the power and some of the downsides of Web 2, has learned from the best aspects of Web 2, and now is moving forward into Web 3, which is the new nature of the internet.
Correct.
And what people are hyped about when it comes to crypto, NFTs, this is just... it's the ABCs of this world.
Right. Just
so
the beginning.
much more that's going to be built in this world. It's so important a cultural change that one of the most mainstream entrepreneurs in the world is building out his company now as a Web3 company. He's saying that, no, I'm going to try. I'm going to rename Facebook into Meta. And I'm going to now take my company forward in this way. It's the center of conversation in Silicon Valley, in entrepreneurial circles, in finance circles.
What I would also like to touch on is, what is this metaverse, right? That this term is getting thrown around a lot, pretty much like artificial intelligence was a decade ago, right? So the easiest way I understand the metaverse is, it's a place you will live digitally, right? How did I understand this? So I actually got introduced to Roblox, which is now a very popular game. It's very, very popular in US and Canada amongst the 7 to 12-year-old. So my sister lives in Canada, and my younger niece, Anya, she loves Roblox. So last 5 years, every birthday gift, Christmas, Diwali, New Year, is just Roblox gift passes, right? And I would, play with her on Roblox because she's in Canada, I'm in India. And she would be like, oh, mama, come to this game, come to that game. And to me, like I said, gaming was either an escape or it was something which I wanted to achieve because I was competitive, right? So I played a lot of Age of Empire during IIT, a lot of Quake 3 in IIM Bangalore. And the reason was all my peers were playing it and I just wanted to be better. For Anya and for this generation, it's actually a place you hang out, right? So like how we used to play gully cricket after school or just roam around the neighborhood doing nothing or bike around doing nothing again, they actually would come to Roblox-like environments and just chill. So like she would take her iPad for an hour go to FaceTime, because Roblox, at least today, doesn't have voice chat. Open up Roblox, and sometimes they will play a game. Sometimes their 3D avatars would just stand there with emojis and they would just talk.
Or what is the game? What do you do in it?
So Roblox has all sorts of different games, right? So there'll be some game where you're actually just doing dance. So it'll be just like an environment where you just go and you just have different dance steps. There'll be some games which will be like PUBG, so they're a little more serious. So it has millions of games. It's a user-generated games platform. Like YouTube is a user-generated video platform.
Got it.
Roblox is a user-generated games platform, right? And so really my understanding was that this generation, for them, these virtual ecosystems, and by the way, everything I'm describing is pre-pandemic, right? The corona pandemic and the lockdown only accelerated that trend, right? That trend was already there. For them, living in the digital world is very natural, right? Like if I today have to go on a call with my friends, I'll just do a WhatsApp call in that group, right? Anya would definitely go on to Roblox to talk to people. So for them, that is the natural interaction, not a video conference, not even an in-meet person, right? So I think metaverse is, like I said, the place you live digitally, right? When you live digitally there, everything has to be there. My identity, right? So imagine today in the world of Facebook, I have one identity, Instagram is another identity, Twitter is another, and there is no connection, right? Whereas in real life, Anshul is one person. Of course, there are facets of personality, right? My interaction with you is different. How I am with my wife is different. How am I with my mother is different. But it's the same person, right? Different facets of the same person. Whereas who I am on Twitter, for most people, will be not related to who I am on Clash of Clans, so on. So the first thing we need in the metaverse is a wholesome identity. The second part, why Web3 and metaverse is a big movement, is autonomy and control of the interactions. See, in real life, I have some control over what interactions I want to make. But whereas if I go to Facebook or YouTube, they define all the rules. They tell you, if you want to post a video, this is what it needs to be. If you want to comment, it can either be a thumbs up or a thumbs down, or only this you can write, right? All the rules defined by centralized bodies, right? Of course, will metaverse also have some rules and regulations? Of course it will. But predominantly, the control and autonomy of interactions will be in my hand, which is why this metaverse and Web3 space is also really big, right? So Web 1, which is like the first dawn of internet, was all about peer-to-peer interactions, right? Like you will start your website, you will write something hosted on your own computer. I will see it. The internet connection, if you are based out of the US to India with the dial-up internet connection, takes me 10 minutes to download one page. Horrible user experience, right? Great part about Web 2, what companies like Google, Facebook did, is they created great UI UX, right? Great user experiences. But to do that, to achieve economies of scale, they centralize everything. So everything in their control, we will tell you what you need to do.
And we'll also take your data.
Yeah, exactly. We'll take your data, we'll take your privacy, we'll take everything to make money out of it, right? Now what is happening in Web3 is we have already learned what great UI UX is. We have learned what technology can do. We have learned how to scale it, right? So we are going to take all of that learning and go back and give that ownership and autonomy to all the users. So now you are in control of your data. You are in control, most importantly, of your interactions. So why ownership? So NFT is also giving you that ownership of property. But why is that ownership important? It is not important just because, hey, here is a stamp, I'm the owner. It's important because the ownership gives me the autonomy of what I can do with it, right? So in Clash of Clans, I buy the monthly pass every month, right? 449 rupees. I always do it because I feel like I'm progressing faster, etc. But I can't do anything with it outside of Clash of Clans, right? Like my TH13, Town Hall 13 village has no value outside of Clash of Clans. Whereas if Clash of Clans was a decentralized place, I would have owned it. Tomorrow, you, Ranveer, can come and say, you know what, I'll create another game. If you are a TH13 in Clash of Clans, come to my game and I'll give you the same progression. So that progression isn't lost, right? So now I have the autonomy to decide whether I play in Clash of Clans or I go to Ranveer's Clash of Clans to actually come and play it. So I think what people really need to understand is that all of us are driven by three main things: autonomy, competence and, like you said, relatedness or community, right? So Web 2 did a good job of relatedness and community by building social network apps. The competence part is probably going to come soon as well, and gaming helps a lot in competence, but the autonomy part has been missing. And this autonomy is what Web3 is enabling, which is why it's going to be 100x opportunity compared to the current Web2 internet, right? So if we are seeing $2 trillion companies, there is definitely a potential that, if we are only seeing 2 trillion companies today, I would argue that instead of seeing a $200 trillion company, we will see 5,000 $2 trillion companies in the Web3 space, which is also why everybody should pay a lot more attention, because anyone, even the current listener here, could be that trillionaire who creates that opportunity, creates those jobs, and creates very valuable ecosystems.
Is there that much money in the world?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like at the end of the day, let me explain to you how I understand money, right? Like let's imagine that the only thing you and I value is getting a haircut, right? So we decide that we'll only get a haircut once a year. So the economy is 2 haircuts. I give you 1 haircut, you give me 1 haircut. Tomorrow we decide, you know what, it'll be better if we do a haircut every month. So suddenly we have increased the economy 12x, right? Because we are getting a haircut 12 times a year. The next day we decide we are going to do a haircut once every day. Now it has just gone up 30 times, right? So all economy is measuring the amount of transactions and interactions we are having, right? That's what I think people don't get about money and economy. It's only a measure of those interactions, right? We really over-index on money, right? Like before, what we used to do is, here is 1 kilo of rice, and instead of 1 kilo of rice, you'll give me 10, whatever clothes, right? Money just made it simpler to do that interaction, right? So, should we worry too much? Like, is 2 trillion or 200 trillion a number? It doesn't matter. My point being that 5,000 amount of interactions are going to increase, which measured in money will obviously inflate the amount of money also with the same proportion.
Two follow-up questions to you. Specifically with Totality, what are you doing right now? And what's your future vision for it? And what do people need to know about Totality? Why did you even create this?
Sure. So like I said, once I really understood the idea of the metaverse, I was like, this space is going to be massive in the next 15 to 20 years, and we need to get in now, right? Like people have been talking about the metaverse for over a decade. So this isn't something new. It's already become a lot more popular now. So, the experimental period of people getting it around their head, theoretical concepts has already taken place. Now is the time for action to build those great businesses because it's taking off. So what we are doing at Totality is we are creating a product, Zionverse. Zionverse is essentially 3 main things, right? So it's playable NFTs. Like I told you, today NFTs are more about the digital art, right? It's a CryptoPunk or a Bored Ape, has no other value apart from the social status that it has attained. So the reason CryptoPunks are worth millions of dollars is not because the art is so cool. The reason is that so many people now give it a status symbol, right? If someone owns a CryptoPunk, they're like, oh bro, you have CryptoPunk, how cool, right? Similar thing as Ferrari. It's not like a Ferrari is 500 times better than some other car, right? It is better, but it's not 500 times better given its value, but it's a status symbol. Similarly, CryptoPunks has become a status symbol. Even at $1 million, I think it's great value because as Web3 adoption increases, status is very important to us as humans. And status symbols will always rise in value. But playable NFTs are combining economic value, social status, art and collectibles, and also entertainment by converting to a playable character. What do I mean by that? So one of our first launch will be a Lakshmi NFT. So the NFT will be of goddess Lakshmi. It'll comprise of one of 9 gods and goddesses. So goddess Lakshmi actually has 8 avatars. The one we pray to is the goddess of wealth. There's also a goddess for child, goddess for land, etc. And there'll be Lord Ganesha. So Lord Lakshmi is obviously the goddess of wealth. And what we want to do is in your NFT, based on chance, like a loot box, you will get either all 9 gods or a subset of the 9 gods. The more gods and goddesses you get, the more rarer you are, right? And unlike other NFTs, this NFT will give you monthly rewards. So you buy this for $101 and it gives you a monthly reward of 3% every month, right? Which we are guaranteeing, right? based on your rarity, there'll be a multiplier of 0.5 to 3. So some people will make 1.5% per month. Some can make 9%, which is equivalent to 108% APY, right? And at the end of the 12 months, you play a game and you are again guaranteed a minimum of $50 to $100. That this will all be USDC, which is the cryptocurrency for USD coin, right? And what do we want the community to get out of this Lakshmi NFT? We want people to really understand that NFTs are not just digital art, right? They are also economic value. There's also playability. There is also entertainment value. So you can game with it. You can get great art because the Lakshmi NFT will have 3D models, also spatial audio music based on Indian mythology. So we are actually figuring out some ragas which are based for Lakshmi Strotam, which will be part of your NFTs. So great collectible, great art, economic value. You play a game with it as well. So people should really, I hope, understand with this concept that NFTs are real digital properties and how we are going to grow them in the ecosystem.
Got it.
The second pillar for Zionverse is Indian mythology. So that's an area we're very interested with, right? So, Norse mythology with Vikings and Greek mythology with all the Greek gods and titans, already very popular in the world. Indian mythology, unfortunately, hasn't got its due, in definitely the global stage, but also in India, it's limited to, according to me, just the TV serials, right? And more of the religious aspect. Whereas the eternal story of superhero and supervillains has a lot of richness presented in the Indian mythology. So I'm a big comic geek fan. I've read all the Raj comics and Diamond comics and, Amar Chitra Katha, and I love Amish Tripathi's books, a lot of mythological fiction, which I love there. And when I floated this idea in my team that should we do something on Indian mythology, average age in my team is 23 years. They were super excited, right? Because they were like, we all obviously know the characters of, Lord Shiva, Lord Ram, Ravana, Goddess Sita, Goddess Lakshmi. But to be able to interact with these characters and consume that story in a different setting, like a gaming environment, animation, would be something that they would really love. And recently we have had successes like Legends of Hanuman on Hotstar. There is a Spotify podcast on Indian mythology. Holy Cow Comics does a lot of comics on Indian mythology subjects as well. A lot of movies are getting released next year and in 2023 based on Indian mythology. I think the time is right for Indian mythology to become as popular as Vikings, if not more popular, right?
I mean, while I want to hear so much more about it, I have to boil it down a little bit again for the listeners.
Right.
I feel it's the job of a podcast host.
Yeah.
So let me take a small recap on everything that you're trying to build. So there's Web 2 right now, which is Facebook, Google of the world. Web 3 is actively being built. We're seeing cryptocurrencies as a part of Web 3.
Correct.
We're also seeing NFTs as a part of Web 3.
Correct.
And we're seeing different elements of the metaverse being built as a part of Web 3.
Correct.
What Web 3 entails is all the factors you named.
Yep.
For me, the peak factor is anonymity, where your data will be protected.
Yep.
Users of Web3 will be able to protect their data. You'll have that sense of privacy. At the same time, we are going towards virtual reality. We're building a metaverse.
Yep.
Now, these two domains of technology are converging. They're coming together. Therefore, a big chunk of the metaverse is going to be built using Web3 concepts. Now, what are Web3 concepts? Basically, say Google and Facebook were built on a certain kind of coding language.
Yeah.
The tools and the coding language and the raw materials in order to build Web3 products are different. They are based on something called the blockchain.
Correct.
Am I right till this?
You're absolutely right.
Okay. So you use the blockchain. Now you're using blockchain raw materials to build out the metaverse.
Correct.
Now within the metaverse, for an average user, not an engineering aficionado, not a blockchain aficionado, not a Twitter user, basically, the metaverse is a virtual world where you'll be able to have a house, you'll be able to have a job, you'll be able to play in the Metaverse Olympics. Go watch Ready Player One. That's a great simulation of the metaverse. That's a Steven Spielberg movie. That's what we're building towards.
Right.
Within the metaverse, people are creating NFTs, which are paintings you can put up in your virtual reality house,
right?
Which is probably a shoe you can wear,
right?
Which is a t-shirt you can wear, which only you will have in the entire metaverse,
right?
In that virtual world.
Right.
Now you're saying that in that metaverse, those NFTs can also be usable products.
Correct.
Probably the real world analogy is that the way kids buy toys or the way adults buy a PlayStation and you get to interact with a PlayStation. This is the metaverse version of a PlayStation of sorts. In terms of you're able to interact with some NFT you're buying. You're able to use it for something.
No, I'm saying it's actually much bigger. So imagine that in the real world, I have a passport, I have an Aadhaar card as authorization, I have bank accounts, I have a house, I have my clothes, I have my shoes, I also have the console. All of that is an NFT. And actually, eventually, all of it will be one NFT. That NFT will be called Anshul Rustagi, whatever that name is inside the metaverse. And within that NFT will be another series of NFTs and currencies, right? So Anshul Rustagi NFT will actually own how Anshul Rustagi looks in that virtual space. All the clothes, skins, shoes, house, car he has, all the bank accounts he holds, all the authorization he holds as different NFTs, all the money he has in different currencies. Maybe I have some Bitcoin, some Ethereum, some Solana, some Dogecoin, some Shiba Inu, whatever is popular at that point of time and being traded, and also whatever my gaming characters are. So what I'm actually saying is that instead of looking at NFTs just as that digital good or just for gaming, this is actually how your Web3 gateway is going to be, right? So why NFT is going to be that? Because when you, like you rightly said, that all the Web3 is being built on the blockchain protocol, right? The blockchain protocol quite simply is saying that everything we have built with Facebook, Google is all centralized and all the protocols are now centralized. We're going to just decentralize everything, right? So you own your data, but copies of your ownership are with all of us in this room and everywhere else in the world so that it's protected, right? We can't see it, right? But we also have some elements of it so that if you need to retrieve it or interact with it, we all have assigned that, yes, this is the data that Ranveer has, this is the data that Anshul has. So it's really that decentralization layer, right? To understand it. And NFTs really will converge to become everything that you need to be inside the metaverse, right? So also remember that metaverse, maybe not tomorrow, but within a matter of 2 to 5 years, will be where you will do your banking, will be where you do your shopping, right?
Will be your office.
Will be your office, absolutely. So the opportunities for people in the metaverse is it's not just gaming, entertainment, it's also your video viewing, video creation. It's also your job. It's also the technology contracts you get, right? So we are a fully remote office at Totality, right? So we all work from our home and work from anywhere. We have done that since January of this year. Obviously, during the lockdown, we were working from home. But from Jan of this year, we decided that we will always be fully remote. It's completely plausible for me to imagine that we become a decentralized autonomous organization where it's not necessary for me to even know, for example, that an Anshul Rustagi is the identity coming to work for Totality. It could be, say, an identity called Wolfgang, which is really my gaming avatar name. And here is all the skills of Wolfgang, right? And Wolfgang can't cheat on those skills because it's decentralized and hence verified on chain in the blockchain protocol, right? So if he has done 5 really successful projects, I know that already, right? People in real life can maybe cheat on their resumes, but on the decentralized world, you can build stuff not to cheat. So work will happen through it. Of course, I'll be working from my laptop, machine anywhere in the world or from my home, but my interaction with that business in the Web3 space will be all through those Web3 protocols, right? So work, banking, all commerce, gaming, all entertainment, everything moves to Web3. And so if you think like, see, I always say like, before the pandemic, right? There was a question I always used to ask people, like, what is the percentage of sales that happens online in the US? Before Corona, what do you think it was in the US? Like the equivalents of Amazon and all the online sales.
At least 50%.
Right? So you would think so. It was only 11%. And in Corona, it only went up to 27%. It's probably stabilized again in the mid 20s. So obviously Corona had that major impact that from 11 it went to 27. It took us a couple of decades to get to only 11%, even though, like you rightly said, even I thought that in the US, everybody shops online, right? So how is it 11%? But remember the amount, like Amazon already is like trillions of dollars worth, right? And imagine the wave that is going to come. Web3 is going to accelerate it even more. So if an equivalent of Amazon in Web2 is worth 1.5-2 trillion, an equivalent company in Web3 is going to be easily, like I said, 100x that, right? And there could be many more businesses which cater to it because it's decentralized, right? And one last thing I'll say is the metaverse idea of Facebook, right? Changing its name. I know we didn't touch on this, but why is Facebook changing its name to Meta important, right? Like, okay, great, it's rebranding. So what's the big deal? I think the big deal is that if a Web2 company as big as Facebook has, struck the gong and said, guys, Web3 is coming, it's no more a question of, is Web3 coming? Is it not coming? Is it speculative? Is it a bubble? It's coming. One of the largest companies in the world has said, listen, we are a Web2 company. We make money from it. We are moving. So if you're already doing any digital business or physical business, you have to have a strategy, right? You cannot now sit on your butts and say, मैं देखता हूँ 2 साल में. It'll be too late. You got to act now for your Web3 strategies.
Also, this is Facebook's big opportunity to become seriously profitable for all the investors.
That's also is true, right? Because I think the one thing you have to give to Zuckerberg for, people have very different views about him, is it takes a lot of balls to say, and a risk that given how large they are, right? He has just said that, I'm all in. And that name change is really that. It doesn't mean that Instagram is going away anytime soon, but the name change signifies that all my focus, attention is on that Web3 part. I'm actually going to flush out everything I've done in the past and create something for the new world that has already begun.
Yeah. Considering how much negative PR there is around him, around Facebook itself, this shows a sense of fight in Zuck. I
Correct.
feel like that I am not done with my own legacy. I'm going
Correct.
forward. I don't know if he really works for legacy because his legacy is already made.
Yep.
So I question that, why is he hustling even more? He's a little crazy for sure. But kudos, man. Respect.
But, no, absolutely kudos, but also flow, right? So, remember, Zuckerberg's level has obviously increased a lot. But if he has got to remain in flow, he needs to increase the challenge a lot more. And this is his challenge to remain in the state of flow, right? Because otherwise, if he just sits down, he can buy a couple of islands, maybe a couple of countries for the wealth he has. He'll get out of that flow state and then life is boring, right? So, what do you do with that wealth if every day is a boring life, right? That's what I feel is the decision that actually prompted him to do it, right? I'm nowhere even close to the wealth of Zuckerberg, but I can definitely see even if I had that wealth, it's immaterial, right? The point is that when I wake up every day, like I wake up today, I have to get really excited about what I'm doing, right? And then when I sleep, I have to be anticipating that tomorrow is even going to be better because I'll work on even more crazy things. And that's his way of, I believe, achieving that flow.
Do you think there's any sense of ego in terms of he's very aware that there's negative PR around him now? In the last 2-3 years, there's negative PR. Probably since Social Network came out, the movie, then Social Dilemma, the documentary on
Correct.
Netflix, and then this whole controversy that happened with the US senators.
Correct.
He gave that on live TV.
Cambridge Analytica stuff also happened with Donald Trump. That also gave him a lot of negative PR. Will there be ego? Obviously, right? He's like a massively successful person. See, all of us have egos, right? He's really successful. He has definitely changed a lot in the world. Should he not himself in his position feel offended that people actually tell him that what he has created is bad? He has really changed a lot in the Web2 space.
He's changed culture, man.
Yeah, absolutely changed culture, right? Like whatever we say, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp is part of our daily life, right? And
Created jobs, created
crazy
thought processes, changed
absolutely.
habits.
Correct. And I think he has never been shy about it, right? Unlike Google, which actually is doing probably worse things than Facebook in terms of privacy, I believe. And they both are, offsetting privacy of people. But Google never came into the limelight because they managed it, right? Facebook is always there because he has always taken that risk in newer products, right? So I think he is okay to be in the limelight. Whether he enjoys it, I don't really know. But it does seem like he always comes in the limelight a little too much compared to like a Google, which is really surprising to me. Like YouTube, Google search, they probably affect our life as much as Facebook, if not more.
One thing I've learned through fame, whatever amount of fame I have, is you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become a villain. It's
Oh,
a Batman.
Batman.
Oh,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
I
so
love
true,
it.
man.
Yeah,
It's so
true,
true. I remember when we used to be not so discovered when numbers were not so good.
Right.
And everyone used to be like, oh, he's a cool YouTuber. Now it's changed into why he's overrated.
Right.
You know, and this happens in businesses as well, especially businesses where they put one person at the forefront and say that this person is our brand.
Correct.
Oyo Rooms
Right.
with Ritesh, who's a
Ritesh.
great guy, but
Yeah.
just people have now this negative thing about him, and
Right.
it's just wrong PR that's happened. Zuck is the other example,
Correct.
which is why probably the founders of Google did something smart by staying away from the limelight. Maybe to protect their own mental health, to protect their own.
Yeah, could be.
Moves.
Yeah, could be. And also, I guess it's maybe a personal choice, right? Like, how much do you want to feel in control and add that innovation, right? So, doesn't feel like Zuckerberg, like he did this stunt on the Independence Day with the surf and the flag, right? Like, it kind of like people started tweeting it as a joke around, but he put himself out there, right? So, like, that's what I'm saying. He's not afraid of it. He could have, like, I haven't really seen any photos of Larry Page or any of the other Google people ever, right, in the recent past at all. They've just really disappeared, and I'm sure that's a conscious choice for them. Whereas for Zuck, it's also a conscious choice to be in the middle of PR. He can disappear, I'm sure, if he wants.
Speaking about the technical side of things again, everyone knows what the meaning of the phrase first movers advantage is. Basically, Zuck, I don't think he had first movers. I think MySpace had first movers advantage in social media.
Correct.
He was
There
with
was High Five, there was MySpace.
Yeah, high five. Wow.
Yeah.
Orkut.
Right, Orkut, correct.
You know, but in the metaverse, this dude has some serious first movers advantage now. Before this recording, we spoke about how content creation gives you a lot of data points. The active data that you get from YouTube or from Instagram, but also you have this intuitive sense of data after a point. You know, okay, this thumbnail is likely to work. This video is likely to work. I'm sure because of Facebook, he has detailed data on different countries, different cities, different suburbs of those cities, different people. He's mapped out the human race.
Right.
That's a serious first mover's advantage over anyone else. Google, him, to some extent Amazon. I feel these guys have first mover's advantage in the metaverse. My question to you is that when we're saying that, okay, it's going to be built on blockchain protocols, which for the amateur listeners who don't know much about coding, just think of it as the coding language, the programming language that the Web3 will be built on, all the elements of Web3. It's different from the apps you use. For example, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all these would be built on Web2 protocols, different coding languages. Now, the computer engineers are going to be working with different technologies to build out Web3. What will Facebook be doing to transition itself from Web2 to Web3? Are they going to reprogram Facebook as a Web3 company, which they are with Meta? But specifically, under, what will they be doing? Will they be creating a very cool metaverse? I'm sure he's inspired from Ready Player One, like all of us.
Right.
Ready Player One is one of those cult classics which is constantly being rediscovered now because people have woken up to the metaverse.
Right.
But technically, what will Facebook be doing to get ready for the world of virtual reality?
Cool. So, one thing I'll say is that if people are interested and they really get hooked on to Ready Player One, they should also read the book called Snow Crash. That's actually the Bible of the metaverse. So in totality, whenever anyone joins, we actually give them the book Snow Crash because that was originally where virtual reality, cryptocurrency, blockchain, and the metaverse concepts got first introduced. So it's really, I think, like every tech founder or entrepreneur in the West and hopefully in India also now should have a copy of Snow Crash on their desk. And I have probably read that book at least 10 times, right? So that's one point. Now let's get to the Facebook idea, right? So you said, like, you believe that they have a first mover advantage. I think they actually have a massive disadvantage given where their DNA is, right? Why do I say that? Look at what happened with Facebook and Instagram and TikTok later, right? Facebook, could they have recreated Instagram? They bought it early. Great. They actually got into that market. TikTok, obviously they weren't able to buy. They tried to recreate it with Lasso initially, which was a massively failed experiment. It was released in South America, completely failed. They copied TikTok entirely, totally failed. So, obviously Google, Facebook, they definitely have the best technology knowledge, a lot of money, definitely understand the consumer. Like you were saying, they have all the data points. So why did Google Circles fail? Why was Facebook unable to create sort of a TikTok experiment, right? And I think, like, the number one question which VCs ask any startup is, if this idea is so obvious, why wouldn't Google and Facebook do it, right? The answer is that it's not part of their DNA, right? Like there is a certain way that the company's DNA is now made. It doesn't matter if you hire the best Web3 engineers and the best designers and throw the best money, the product will not be made. And the reason is, like we were talking about, is flow, right? When I love and I'm very passionate about something, even though I could be an army of one, वो जो होता है ना जो बोले सौ निहाल, right? It is the same idea that when I am in flow, I am equivalent to thousands of other people could be as smart, but because of my passion, that's the drive and that's the energy and that's the end result that will happen, right? So a TikTok can never become a Facebook can never become a TikTok, and neither of them can become a Web3 company. The reason I stated earlier when I said that this is actually a fresh start for everybody, right? So I totally believe that Zuckerberg and I are at the same starting point to build in the metaverse. Does he have infinitely more capital than me? Absolutely. But does he have infinitely more disadvantages compared to me? Absolutely, right? Because the expectations from a Meta are so much higher. He thinks he has learned the process. So will he unlearn everything that he has learned? Absolutely not. He already has a lot of data points, so he will think that, with that data and with that pattern, the new pattern will also be something similar, but it won't be, right? I have seen that in gaming quite a lot, right? PC gaming was the thing for digital gaming, right? When console came, I remember I was a PC gamer also, and Atari flopped, right? Atari was very big, then completely crashed after their game ET, right? And went out to the market. They went bankrupt, right? Then PC gaming grew. I was a PC gamer. When consoles came again with PlayStation and Xbox, everyone was like, "ये तो नहीं चलेगा." PC is the gaming, console is stupid. Then console became really big. PC gamers couldn't transition to console, right? When mobile gaming came, even today, when people who are console gamers, they'll say, "Yeah, you are a mobile gamer. Don't call yourself a gamer," right? In a gaming market of 170 billion, 60% of revenues come from mobile gaming. Let me not even go into the figures of users. Probably 80-85% of users are mobile users in gaming itself, right? The number of companies who could transition from PC or console gaming to mobile are, I can count them in one hand, right? Why couldn't they? Did they not know technology? Of course they did. Did they not have data points? Of course they did. But they didn't have that DNA. Like I've talked to a lot of gaming entrepreneurs who themselves didn't believe in the mobile opportunity, right? So when you don't have that belief, when you don't have that passion, when you don't accept that I have to relearn everything, which is very difficult, right? And things like Web3 will be built on first principles. You will have to restart and rethink, which is why I'm saying that for everyone, this is an amazing opportunity. If I and Zuckerberg are at the same level, then everybody listening to this podcast is also at the same level. So it's get go, and this opportunity will not come in our lifetime at least. In our younger generation, maybe there'll be some other variation of metaverse, something else that comes up. But in our lifetime, this is the opportunity to become the next Facebook or become the next Google, right? And they don't have any advantage over us.
You know what I think the next wave will be after Metaverse? It's just conjecture. It's also based on Black Mirror slightly. Are you a Black Mirror fan?
Yeah, I am.
Maybe you'll be able to download your consciousness onto something.
Right.
Like we saw in that Black Mirror episode, San
Yeah.
Junipero.
Correct.
Where after someone passes away, their consciousness still remains inside a world.
Yeah.
Therefore, any dead relative, you'll be able to go meet the actual version of that relative inside
Correct.
a device.
Correct.
Maybe, man. If someone can map out the entire neural structure of your mind, recreate your personality point to point, including how your personality will evolve.
Yeah.
Using probably pattern recognition, I don't know.
Yeah.
But maybe that's the next big technological revolution. But we're talking about 2050 post. So let's talk about the metaverse.
There's, by the way, a very good series on that, exactly what you're saying, called Upload.
Right. I know
So they did exactly the same thing. Yeah.
But anyway, that's too futuristic.
Right.
Because actually that requires progress in the world of neuroscience.
Correct.
And the world of neuroscience is very complex. That's one thing I figured. The human mind is not mapped out at all right
Correct.
now. Like we're just starting to learn details about it. And there's so many mysteries
Right.
that we're still discovering.
Right.
But coming back to the metaverse, so I know that there are a lot of excited college kids watching this. But they're like, yo, I have the opportunity here to become the next Zuckerberg, Indian Zuckerberg, etc., etc. And please, college kids, share this in your groups. You guys make the podcast grow. What's your advice to the college kid in terms of how to get into the world of Web3 because I want to highlight the fact that Bill Gates created Microsoft because as a kid he learned programming. Zuckerberg created Facebook because as a kid he built products. This is the message for the kid who's going to become the Bill Gates or Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs of Web3. What should the kid do right now?
So I would actually say that you can become a lot more than just the Bill Gates and the Zuckerberg, right? And here is the opportunity. So if you want to be the Bill Gates was more a product person rather than just a coding guy. So he really figured out what the users want. So are you the person who can really figure out what the user will require? Look at the pattern, listen to more podcasts, read more about Web3. If you figure that there is a product idea, like how Bill Gates figured out the product idea, you can easily do that in Web3. Zuckerberg was also the product, but more of the coding guy as well. So, learn Solidity, learn Web3.js, really get your fundamentals in JavaScript if you want to be the coder.
What is Solidity and Web3.js?
So Solidity is the language used for building decentralized apps on the Ethereum network.
The raw material for building
Web3. the coding protocol, the coding language to actually build those applications and communicate, right? Like you have JavaScript, like you have Java, like you have other different languages. Solidity is for the Ethereum network, right? Web3.js is how you would communicate on front end, like the web, with the Web3 applications. So you can understand these and actually start building dApps, which are decentralized apps, right? So if you are really, your passion is to actually build programs and build smart contracts and build algorithms, that's the way you should do it. But there's also an opportunity for you to become the next Warren Buffett or the Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. Why is that? So see, a lot of people so far have made a lot of money in cryptocurrencies. Some got lucky, right place at the right time, which you need in life anyway. But we haven't even seen anywhere close to the wave that is coming, right? So by finding the right projects, by finding how to create businesses in this financial world, you can actually also become the next Warren Buffett, the next JP Morgan, the next Goldman Sachs, the next Rakesh Jhunjhunwala of that world in the Web3 space. Because like I said, so far a lot of people think of Web3 as an opportunity for entertainment and social media. But all of finance, all of commerce is going to move to Web3.
And crypto is just the start of it.
Crypto is a super small subset of it, right? You're right. It's the start. See, like we live in a world of instant gratification, right? There is nothing more instantly gratifying than getting money, right? And so crypto world actually emulated that and said, here is something and it's going up. And as soon as we see growth, right? We are like, oh, this is awesome, right? The real reason we like money, and also by the way, the real reason economists have inflation is we just want to see growth, right? If my salary goes up by 50%, doesn't matter if bread goes up by 100%. I will like apni to salary 50% बढ़ गई, I'm happy, right? In the opposite, if bread goes down by 50% and मेरी salary 10% भी गिर जाए, I'm better off in the other scenario. But I'll be like, यार salary गिर गई 10%. I don't like it. So we are tuned for growth. We are tuned for numbers going up, right? And crypto does that, right? So it's also a game. I'm sitting there. I'm like, oh, Bitcoin up, down, roller coaster, adrenaline. But it's going to be, like I said, crypto is going to be a super small part of NFTs. And NFTs are a gateway into Web3, right? So Web3 is a massive, massive opportunity, right? The other thing I'll say is, I think one thing we didn't touch upon on Facebook is this whole virtual reality part, right? Which is that when we even see Ready Player One, or we see what Facebook is building with Horizon now, called Meta, the entire idea is that, oh, we are just going to put some lenses, wear some bodysuit, and it'll all be virtual, right? I highly disagree. Some of the interactions, like maybe this podcast we are having, will be like that. So I'll be sitting in Gurgaon wearing my HoloLens or whatever Oculus with a bodysuit, so that if I move my hand, I feel those vibes and vibrations. And similarly, you could be doing it out of your studio. And this is okay because whatever I'll talk will be easily communicated, right? But now imagine playing Mortal Kombat wearing a bodysuit, right? Like I'm definitely not a really fit person, but in 10 minutes I'm done, right? Instead, the best tools God has given me are fingers, right? So these digits are super important because they are the best tools humans had. And they have been evolved for hundreds and thousands of years, right? So the reason I'm able to play my game so much more easily is the physical effort is low, right? So a lot of Web3, according to me, will be mobile. It will be in the 3D space, but mobile and potentially AR. I'm actually not that big on VR becoming the big space of metaverse. It'll again be a small subset. But to a lot of the, a lot of people who talk about metaverse, the assumption, because of Ready Player One in particular, and because of what Facebook is pitching, is that, oh, we are all going to sit in our bedrooms wearing these, VR goggles, wearing these bodysuit and doing stuff. Not going to happen, right? We by nature are conserving energy, which is why by nature we tend to be a little bit lazy because of conservation of energy, and using hands are definitely going to be a lot easier than kicking around, moving around the space, right? Imagine playing PUBG where I have to move that much, right? Like 30 minutes, a game, khatam, rather than the 10, 12 hours that some people who love PUBG do. So, metaverse future, more mobile driven, AR driven potentially. VR will, according to me, be a small subset. It'll definitely be a subset, but a smaller subset.
Crazy, fascinating insight, man. But I have a follow-up question, which is
Sure.
that in 2041, when the metaverse is established and our parents are on it and our grandkids are on it, what will daily life look like? So, according to you, from everything you've understood, from the moment you wake up in the morning at whatever, 9 a.m., 10 a.m., how will your day look like for an average person, an office goer?
Okay. So let me map my day today, right? So I generally wake up at 5:30. I've off late gotten into a good habit of exercising 6 to 7 with my trainer. From 7 to 9, I'm on my laptop working on my own. From 9:30, our meetings start till 7:30 in the evening, where I'm on my laptop, on my phone continuously. And then from 7:30 till I sleep around till 10:30, I'm with my family having dinner. So now if I see the amount of time I spend on devices, that's already close to 12 hours in a day, right? Why is it difficult for us to imagine that if I'm going to work and I'm just going to log into whatever device will be the device for me to log in into the metaverse, why wouldn't we be spending at least half our time there? I think it's very plausible, right? So like I wake up, of course, my physical body will still need to be there. In our lifetime, that is not going away, right? Maybe the crazy part of, like you said, consciousness being uploaded and us not even needing a physical body happens in 100 years time or whenever it does. But in our lifetime, the physical part is probably, in my opinion, going to be 8 to 10 hours, and everything else I do, work, transactions, commerce, some socializing aspect, some will be in real life, some will be digital, like it is already today. WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, it's already happening through a device, right? But suddenly, like you said, change is always scary for people. Suddenly, if you tell people, oh, metaverse is coming, people are like, oh my God, oh my God. But this change, by the way, will be a lot smoother for the user than people think, right? Why? Because, like I said, predominantly metaverse is going to come through your existing mobile devices or newer mobile devices. So your change will be, you have to remember mobile devices, like the App Store was 2008, right? It's 13 years ago, right? Right now, if I tell someone that we didn't have mobile device when I went to IIT, people will be like, what? How can you not have mobile, right? If I tell my parents that there was no Google search when they were doing their MBA, it's unimaginable, right? Like, how the hell did you even search for information at that time? So people adopt to changes very rapidly, right? And that is also more so the reason that the metaverse comes through what we are already habitual of, right? So when I log into my laptop for work, I'll be doing all the transactions like I do in different Web2 systems, but on Web3 in a more secure way, in a more frictionless way. And so this change is not even 2041, according to me. According to me, it's 2030. We're less than a decade away from this change coming, right? Where I log in, I talk to you, I get out from my device and I say, okay, I'm moving around. Now I'm in my workplace. I have a 3D avatar in my workplace, which is actually having those meetings, doing some work. I'm doing my coding that gets verified in the Web3 system, gets integrated into a product, pushed to the users. There's commerce there. Instead of me logging out of that system and going to an HSBC bank system, that's integrated in my work system already, right? Like I said, wholesome identity. So even work will have a wholesome identity, right? Totality also needs to have a wholesome identity. It cannot be a different thing for HSBC, a different thing for the work people, different things to our customers, etc., etc. So this transition for the end user will be much smoother. It's a much more difficult transition for creators and developers.
What do you mean creators and developers? Developers, I understand. What do you mean creators?
So I think the transition. See, like what will happen is the world of Web3 will introduce a complete new set of interactions, right? Which wasn't possible in Web2. So, like I am saying that for Facebook and me, it's the same starting line. Even for all creators, it's sort of the same starting line, right? So, for example, for you, you will have to take your knowledge of YouTube, according to me, and also redefine it what will happen in the Web3 space. Because now the amount of interactions you can have is unlimited. You're not limited by YouTube's algorithm or Instagram's algorithm or the amount of interactions which they will only allow. Now, like I said, autonomy, you need to define your autonomy, right? So you need to find what your users are already used to, what the habit they have, and what delta habit can you change for them to elevate the experience they have with you, right? So is it super chat or a better variation of super chat? Definitely will happen, right? Is it a completely new interaction which hasn't been built yet? Absolutely, right? Before Twitter built super chat, everybody poo-pooed on that idea that who will give donations. Once Twitter became famous, YouTube actually copied it, right? It was actually Twitter which pioneered it, right? But it was a different interaction. So in Web 2, you needed another company to create that interaction. In Web 3, Ranveer will create that interaction. So you actually have a lot of onus and creative potential in the Web 3 space, which is why I'm saying even creators will need to relearn. For the user, the change will be a lot more, easy, right? Like if we ask the newer generation, like, do you think learning Facebook was difficult? No, because that was the beauty of UI UX, right? The beauty of UI UX is that it was very intuitive, right? And that is where we needed Web 2 to happen before Web 3. So now that we have learned UI UX, all the products that we will make, so like, current crypto products have really shit UI UX, right? Because the crypto native people have maybe not learned that from Web 2 space. And this move of Web 2 people coming to Web 3 is going to bring that change in the crypto and the Web 3 space as well.
Like when a stronger player comes, you have to learn the skills of the stronger player.
Exactly, right? The game is going to get elevated from everybody. There are a lot of new things. Like I said, for all Web 2 people, we have unlearned a lot of things and are learning new things. But because we have learned some things before, we do have some advantages and some disadvantages of those learnings.
Very random question, but what's your gut feel about what will happen to the world of films, Bollywood in Web3? Because I hear you when you speak about creators, because what is creator-based fame? It's one person that you look up to or one person that you turn to for entertainment. But storytelling is a human need. And storytelling is the core aspect of why Bollywood exists, why Hollywood exists, why films exist, why cinema and plays and acting exists. What will happen to that whole world according to you?
So I think it gets even more and more democratized, right? So like you're rightly saying, I mean, just think about our grandmother stories, right? All of us in some variation, whether it's a grandmother or a mother, would have told us what was Diwali, right? So my mother's story of explaining me Diwali when I was a kid, or your mother's, would have some of the core truth, which everyone knows, but the actual render of that story for your mother and my mother would be very different. They would add elements of their personality and what they thought I would like as a kid, and same for your mother, the story she told you, right? Now see the same thing with cinema 50 years ago versus the movies today, right? Cinema before was only broadcast. They would look at what the mass audience would like and only target that. Forget the long tail, right? Today, thanks to streaming, OTT, YouTube, some people can create crazy niche audience with content which is maybe not mass. Because now that there are 7.5 trillion, there are 4.5 trillion people already on the internet, right? And because there are so many people on the internet, finding 10 million people who like something is not that tough, right? And 10 million is a very small niche, it sounds like, but a great business and a great opportunity for me to follow my passion and create stuff. So if you see what has happened with YouTube and Netflix, etc., the storytelling has become more democratized and more customized, right? Web3 is going to create that even more. So today you are bound by, on Netflix I can only do this, right? On YouTube I can only do Y, right? Like in the world of centralization, when you can't really create your own distribution platform, you're forced to go to a YouTube. There is no other choice, right? In Web3, that won't be the case. If that's the case, if for you finding your users is a layer of technology which becomes much easier than YouTube, then why wouldn't you be able to create even more customized content? You would. And for the everyone wins, right? You get to follow exactly your passion and exactly your story. The users actually get to see more of the reality than what was happening in Web 2. So Web 2 did wonders for the creator economy because they created a better UI UX, really grew it. But specifically for creator economy, like if I say Web 3 to Web 2 is a 100x to 500x change, for creator economy it's probably a 10,000x change, right? Because every unique story that is going to get told and every unique relationship is now going to be possible, right? So also imagine that with the advent of AI, you will also be able to change story on the go, right? So let me give simple examples of language. Right now, what you would have to do is, we are recording in English. If you had to do this in Hindi, you could add subtitles, but realistically, for good experience, we will have to re-record Hindi completely. But what will happen with AI also, this is not specific to Web3, is we do one recording, and in every language, AI will take care and translate our lip movements to whatever that local dialect is. That small change is gonna accelerate the spread of your content in every language tremendously.
This is called the Squid Game effect in the media world.
Yeah, true.
Because Squid Game did it in
Correct.
every language
Correct.
of the world.
Correct. Right.
That's why it grew so much also.
Yes, and it's the same thing with games, right? One of the things they say is personalize your game app store page or a Play Store page. And if I'm in Russia and if I do English, I'll probably get, say, 10 people, right? If I do it in Russian, suddenly I'll get 1 million people because people can relate to it. Now just imagine that you did it with one recording, right? And it is now even more possible because maybe Play Store says, nah, I'm not going to allow this AI video, right? The tech is already here, right? Deepfake, etc. The tech is already here. With Web3, you will have no constraints to distribution. So it'll make it a lot more possible.
Follow up naughty question. What do you think porn will become?
So it's really weird because just before I came here, I was actually talking to two entrepreneurs and we were actually discussing the idea of decentralized OnlyFans. So for people who don't know, OnlyFans was like the monetization layer for porn stars, right? And I was discussing and I started jokingly, but then I thought it's a serious business opportunity where imagine a porn star creating a video, but there are only 10 of them as NFTs and you auction them out, right? So if you want to see that porn star doing something, there are only 10 videos that exist and others can't do it. Now there'll be part frenzy because of social status that I own that porn star's video. There'll be part that I need to see that content. And if I'm a really big fan, I'll be willing to pay a lot more money. And also because it's a decentralization layer, people who get into that system can decide whether porn is good for them or not good for them, right? So look, I'm a believer that the two areas where technology got created the first is porn and gaming, right? History will show you that AR, VR got created in porn and gaming, and all technological changes first happened in porn and gaming, right? So again, porn is a basal instinct, probably the oldest profession in the world, right? Will this happen with Web3 a lot more? Absolutely, right? We actually started thinking like there was apparently some bunny coins, which was a play on Playboy, and we were like, why haven't these ideas taken up already? I was really surprised, right? And even the two founders I was talking to were like, yeah, it seems like the most obvious idea, right? To do a decentralized OnlyFans version, definitely coming, right? If it isn't already there, someone listening to this should create it, hopefully.
What do you think is the future of crypto, considering where we are at? I'm sure you own some crypto.
Yeah, I definitely own crypto. Look, I'm very bullish on crypto because I'm very bullish on Web3, right? So I think the thing to understand is the reason, the causation of it, right? Like when people look at Bitcoin or Ethereum prices or Dogecoin or Shiba Inu, they're like, yeah, level bata do, level, right? Like Shiba Inu, thanks to Elon Musk, has gone up like crazy. So people are right now like, oh, I need to own some Shiba Inu, right? Like I know this person, he put in 1 lakh and right now he's sitting at 16 lakhs, took out 6 lakhs as profit as well. So he's a happy bunny, right? Great. Awesome for him. Amazing. But realistically, if you are investing in these currencies, I would urge that the amount of money that you can really make by understanding Web3 is a lot more, right? Yes, you can be lucky to get at an entry point which is right and make some money. Great. Money is important, money is needed. But again, really figure out what is the long term play. And if Web3 is going to increase, which I believe it 100% will, then Bitcoin is like the gold standard of Web3. It will increase. Ethereum is the most accepted standard to actually build decentralized apps. It will also definitely increase. So if you are a big believer in Web3, Bitcoin and Ethereum are definitely good long-term buys, right? Does that mean that it's going up tomorrow? No. Does that mean that it can't fall by 50%? No, it can. But to me, I'm a long-term holder, and I think these, in value terms, also will go up quite a lot because the adoption to Web3 has just started, right? Now, also what we got to remember is that, look, cryptocurrency is going to be again a small subset of your wealth creation. Like I said, there are tons of NFT projects where people have made money. I do know a 19-year-old who is worth $3 million because he minted 2 CryptoPunks for free, right? And he just sat on them because he believed in it. He now has, 2 CryptoPunks worth $3 million, right? So a lot of people have made a lot of wealth in NFTs also.
What is the process of actually creating an NFT? Like technically, from scratch, how do you create one?
So I'll take an example of CryptoPunks. So what they did is because they want all the art to look consistent, they actually make it generative. What is generative art? Rather than one person sitting down and creating all the 2D images like of CryptoPunks, you actually code it. And then the program actually created all the 10,000 avatars which are inside CryptoPunks. You took those PNGs files, and most of these NFTs are placed in what is called a interplanetary file system. Sounds pretty exciting, but what it does is it basically links to all your media format, and then you put it on the blockchain. And NFTs, because they are non-fungible, all that means is, see, like my 100 rupees and your 100 rupees is the same. It can be exchanged for the same value. But in CryptoPunks or NFT, your CryptoPunk would be unique and mine will be unique. There will be no other copy of it, which is why it's non-fungible. Like we can't just exchange it. We may choose to exchange it for the same value, but that will be a special case rather than the normal case itself.
As of 2021, most of the NFTs that people refer to are basically digital paintings.
They are basically digital art, which is why we are saying, playable NFTs will definitely be the natural upgrade and the future of what NFTs are going to become.
I have infinite more questions, but I also think this is one of the heaviest conversations I've put out.
Right. Okay.
I didn't intend for it to be a 2-part podcast, but it's become one because of just how heavy it is.
Right.
I have a lot to think about also. So I'm probably just going to end both these parts by asking you one simple question. They say that the jobs which are relevant today, be it law, be it surgery, be it content creation, all of it is going to get shaken up. If you think that some job is going to stay the way it is, AI is coming, Web3 is coming, just be careful.
Correct.
But what won't change are your basic human skill sets.
Correct.
And that's actually what a college kid can apply if he doesn't actually want to learn coding. Because there will be many kids who don't learn how to code.
Absolutely.
There will be many kids who won't be capable of creating Web3 products.
Correct.
But that doesn't mean that they won't find a job in Web3.
Correct.
And that doesn't mean that they won't become a CEO in Web3. And that doesn't mean that they won't become a superstar in Web3.
Correct.
So keeping that in mind, what are the relevant skill sets for like a kid right now?
So I'll say that the one thing which will definitely never change is human behavior, right? So I think like I am a student of human psychology and behavioral science, because unless you understand human history and how humans behave, whether it's Web 1 or Web 2 or Web 3, these are just new playgrounds for us to interact in different manners. But our basic needs will never change. So if you have an inkling towards understanding human psychology and behavioral science, that field is going to be one of the most sought after fields as we grow. Right?
Because every product will need a psychologist or something in the core team.
And a behavioral scientist, right? So we actually have a full-time behavioral scientist on our tokenomics design team. Why? Because I think game design and tokenomics design, where we are getting intrinsic motivations out of human, needs to have that understanding, and you can't create those economy and those ecosystems without able to understand that human psychology element, right? And that is never changing, right? So we are obviously adapting, but our basal instincts haven't changed, right? When something comes in front of us, we have a flight or fight, right? It is different in Twitter, it is different in real life, but it is fight or flight, right? The absolute way it gets manifested in these platforms will change, but the fight or flight will always remain, right? So that's one. The other skill which will definitely never change is food, right? So actually, if someone is inclined towards, so one of my first cousins became a chef. He did his engineering MBA, found his true passion in cooking, and I think he was like in his early 30s when he did a course and became a chef. And now he has found his passion there and he's doing that business, right? I think if you love cooking, that is also an area which will never change. Like that need to actually have that, right? The third thing I'll say is just pattern recognition, right? So whether you are a great content creator, whether you are a great investor, they all require a great pattern recognition. And pattern recognition to me is all about understanding history, figuring out that this is a pattern, seeing what is changing, and then having a hypothesis of the future, right? So I think all we learned in the one great thing we learned in science and some part of it in engineering is to do hypothesis, right? Form a pattern, get to an educated hypothesis, try it out, right? This is all A/B testing. Everybody did that in the Web2 space. And if that hypothesis fails, I move to the next. As it succeeds, then I start building much more on it. So I think this pattern recognition, irrespective of whatever area you are in, even if it's in sports, right? You got to do the pattern that, okay, this bowler, if this happens, then he does the ball this way.
That's what
And
they
if
say
you're
about Sachin.
correct. That's what you have to keep thinking, right? That he'll know, oh, in that particular match, this guy did this. So he got the historical data. He's now assuming from that historical data that this guy will do it, right? You could take it to another meta level, which is Sachin could say that now if I think that, maybe the bowler is thinking that Sachin is thinking that, so I have to do something completely different. So again, a little bit of game theory comes into it. But this pattern recognition is an eternal skill, right? And the last I'll say is storytelling, which is a composition of all of these things, right? You got to understand what humans like, you got to understand what the current pattern and trend is, and you have to be able to engineer a great story around it or design a great story around it, right? So there is a reason it's called story and not fact telling, because I think there was some other movie where it said never let a good fact come in the or facts come in the way of a good story, right? So to communicate things, why is storytelling important? The communication of ideas is most powerful when some emotions are involved, right? That's proven fact, right? Biologically, psychologically, that's a proven fact. So the easier way for me to remember something is only going to be through that stories, because unless it flares up my emotions, I'm not going to remember it or I'm not going to get bothered by it. Which is also probably, a main reason why I think a lot of religion came into picture.
Yeah.
Because it was a way to mass educate, and the whole emotions of doing, different activities and a lot of our epics, the way they have been narrated is to like that is actually the original storytelling, right?
Yeah, 100%.
To communicate these different virtues to us.
It's said that both religion and patriotism arose out of the need for controlling masses
Correct.
through simple narratives.
Correct.
Like
Yeah, absolutely.
You couldn't tell 2,000 people that, hey, please go and help those people near the river.
Exactly.
But you could tell them that, hey, Raghav and Sanchit are going to die near the river. And if you don't run from your village called Dadar to that river,
Correct.
they will die.
Correct. Yeah,
It
true.
was basically that.
Correct.
Where you had to give directions to people through sentences.
Yeah, true. And rules, right? And very basic rules, some fear driven, some driven by, some lollipop. If you go to heaven, there is a heaven, something XYZ will happen. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. But I think I agree that it is like, to me, religion was actually the original sort of storytelling, and only the mode is evolving, right? YouTube is a great storytelling platform. So are movies, which is why they will always exist. A format of it and the distribution of it is evolving and will keep evolving.
I want to end the podcast, but I actually have another burning question. Which
Sure.
is something I've been discussing with one of my co-founders, Harshil Karya. We're building an app which will gamify the process of growth, which will gamify fitness and meditation.
Right.
Therefore, the focus is on helping people live a better, healthier life. I do also believe that Web3 is going to have an impact on how you live in your daily life. It will affect the way you'll exercise. It will affect the way you'll perceive meditation. And for all you know, it will affect mental health in many ways because there'll be such an input of data, which is
Correct.
what we're seeing with Gen Z. Why there's so many more mental health issues?
Correct.
Why does Gen Z talk so much more about anxiety?
Correct.
We also were that age once.
Yep.
We didn't talk so much about anxiety. And we can easily say that, oh yeah, we were tougher, but that's not entirely true.
No, that's not true.
They've had a different teenage, a different childhood than what we did. They've had a different behavioral sort of cooking up of their brains.
Right.
They've been driven by validation. They've been driven by social media.
Correct.
They've been driven by social media validation.
Correct.
So my point is, I actually think we are heading more into a world of mental health issues also, which will require a need to sort out those mental health and physical health issues.
Yeah.
So what do you think will happen to real life in the middle of all this?
So I think, when I refer to real life, I actually mostly refer to it as the physical manifestation of it, right? Rather than, like, to me, and this is where I differ from people a little bit, like when people say, "Yaar, Clash of Clans ka game khelte rehte ho tum." If I say real, like, are those interactions to me very meaningful? They are. Do I do them every day? I try to, as much as I get time. Do I care about it? I do. So to me, they are as real as they get, right? What I'm saying by that is, what will happen in Metaverse and Web3 will actually be all real, right? So the physical world, so like my theory about why there is so much more anxiety with Gen Z is, A, there is information overload. B, there is an unlimited amount of ways you can achieve things very quickly. So for example, in our parents' time, it was very understood that you will gain social status when you're in your 50s and 60s, right? It takes time, build career, get some money, get some standing in society, etc. Right? In our generation, it became much easier. In the current generation, if you are 12 or 13, you're a TikTok star, you got social status at a stage where you don't even know how to manage it, right? And that was the real reason for also the popularity of these platforms. So all of Web2 platforms were really built on social status, right? And they have only been using social status. And by definition, social status is not internal. It is something people give me, right? Now, if they give it something, they can take it away, right? And that is where the anxiety comes from, right? Now, my currency isn't money. My currency is that social status. So if I'm a TikTok star or Instagram, even with 50 followers, right? Like my niece, Anya, she's now on Instagram. She invited me. And I was, a little bit like dicey about, because to me, she will always remain like a kid, right? Whether she's 12 or 30 or 40 or whatever age she is. And I was like, I'm not sure. Like, I'll be okay seeing some pictures of her as she gets into her teenage years. And if I start commenting, she'll start, saying, she'll call me up and said, "Hey, I did my first post. Why didn't you like it?" So I was like, okay, that's crazy, right? Because earlier it was okay. I talk to her 2 or 3 times a week. So she expects me to talk then. With Instagram, she wants me to like it that moment, right? If I don't like it that moment, she's getting upset that, whoa, what the heck? He must have got a notification. If he didn't get a notification, why didn't he put my notification on? So everything has become instant, right? That's the anxiety issue, right? The feedback is instant, right? So that is the problem. As we go towards Web3, my hope is that a lot of people will realize that what is actually good for us, right? Because instead of all of us flocking towards one centralized app, where we will hopefully be now able to choose the interactions and have that autonomy. So parents, instead of saying that the choice is either TikTok or no TikTok, there'll hopefully be 100 variations of them. And one TikTok will not be able to take away all the users, because right now the power is, that's why they say it's just a power of one, right? It's a network effect game. One person will take away the entire market. So if you see in Web2, largest player has 80% market share, second player has 15%, third player has 4%. Everyone else is fighting for that 1%, right? Web3 will normalize it, which is also my comment about, instead of 5 $2 trillion companies, there'll be 5,000 $2 trillion rather than $200 trillion companies, right? Because you won't be able to create a castle around what you have built. So what Facebook, etc. did, Uber did, is promised you, oh, come to us, very democratic, come, take these incentives, free. You came, they kept building, shut everybody else down, build a castle wall around. Now your choice is ki yaar, should I be on WhatsApp or not? The choice is obvious, you will be on WhatsApp. There is no other choice, right? Even after the privacy issues, like I went to Signal, right? So I was like, yeah, Signal is going to be the thing. The problem was only 20% of my connections were on Signal. For the remaining 80, I had to do WhatsApp. Now, will I manage two apps? No, right? So I moved back to WhatsApp. I have no idea where Signal's DAO or metrics is, but must be back to some much lower number than when these privacy issue came. Decentralized and metaverse, that is not going to happen, right? So hopefully parents, people will be able to understand, like you said, about a more mental wellness, more sort of fitness issues, and carve their path towards that. This is what I want the life to be. That flock mentality needs to go away, and it will go away in the decentralized world. I hope that's the case, right? If people like Facebook win, maybe not, but I don't think that's going to happen.
I want to end this conversation by saying that I still feel that there's massive room for a personal branding game in Web3.
Yeah,
Because if there are so many options, if there's a buffet,
correct.
you will go to the option where you find your friend.
Absolutely.
And that's what a content creator is versus a Bollywood star. Bollywood star is not your friend. He's the person you lust over.
Correct.
She's the person you admire.
Correct.
But a content creator is your friend.
Is the person you have that relationship and that belongingness with, right? And that is exactly what I was saying. I completely agree with you. See, that storytelling and the content creation aspect will become more customized.
Yeah.
So the connection I'll have with a Ranveer on Web3 will be much closer, because right now YouTube is the middleman, arbitrating it.
Yeah.
Tomorrow it will be the direct connection that you'll be able to have on Web3.
This was a masterclass.
Thank you.
Anshul, wow, man. Like, shit. Like, this was a heavy, heavy conversation. And I can't think of too many other conversations that we've had on the show that have been this level of heavy. And it shows your level of hustle in terms of studying, man. Like, you've gone through like a journey to learn all this. And to believe that you were like in IIT, in IIM, then at a hedge fund, you were in the world of finance, you shifted into this world of Web3.
Right.
One, it says a lot about Web3. Two, it says a lot about you in terms of...
Thank you.
You spoke about Zuck's spirit for fighting. I'm talking to a fighter right here. So,
thanks.
Really cool, man. Looking forward to continuously learn from you. I'm obviously going to link all your handles down below. I'm looking forward to see what you build in Web3. That's what I'll say. And I'm looking forward to be guided by you, because I want to build in Web3 too.
Man, I really love this conversation. I can tell you, before we started, I wasn't entirely sure how much fun it would be and how interesting it would be. But it was like, I don't even realize like how time flew by.
We're talking about that flow.
Yeah, exactly. I think we were definitely in that flow. And I really look forward. I'm sure, like I was saying to you before this conversation, Web3 is the place for you and all other content creators as well.
Yeah, where life won't be controlled by algorithms and you won't have to create a particular form of content that's currently popping.
Exactly.
Because the people at the top believe, this is the way it should be.
Correct.
You get to decide.
Correct. And you have that direct relationship with all your users and all your, fans.
Yeah. Which is why, guys, please share the podcast, put the bell icon on, and stay notified. Thank you, Anshul.
Thank you so much, Ranveer.
I bow down to you and your knowledge, man. For real.
No, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, brother. Woohoo! I sigh after so many of these episodes, right? It's not fake. It's a genuine feeling, because while we're recording these outros, I have to place myself in the moment right after we recorded the episode. I have to feel what I felt then, and woohoo is what I felt after these 2 parts. Oh my lord, if you haven't seen part 1, go away, watch part 1 right now, consume it. Because people like Anshul Rustagi are very rare, not just in India, but in the world in general, with that kind of a career track record and with this kind of knowledge in the space of blockchain. These are the kind of people who are going to change the world going forward. These are the kind of people who are going to give you compasses for your own career. Make sure you follow all of Anshul's links. Make sure you follow him on social media, because there's a lot more to come from this man. Make sure you check out Totality Corp and the Zionverse, everything that they're up to. And Make sure you tell your friends. Come on, we got to keep growing this TRS community. This is the community that will hopefully change India and eventually change Asia, because I know that we have a lot of non-Indian viewers and listeners as well. So remember, for all of us, follow TRS on Spotify. We're a Spotify exclusive now, which means that every episode is available on Spotify 48 hours before it's available anywhere else in the world. Lots of heavy episodes, full of current affairs, full of new information, not just full of self-improvement. Coming up for you, the Ranbir Show community.